Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 at 5 p.m. It's a special meeting of Pacific Grove City Council. I'll ask the City Clerk, would you please give us a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Tomlinson? Councilmember Paduri?
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams? Here. Councilmember Coletti?
Present.
Councilmember Emilio?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith? Councilmember Tomlinson?
Here.
Mayor Peak?
Here.
I have everyone present with the exception of Mayor Pro Tem Smith at the moment. There he is. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Smith. I'm just taking roll now.
Here.
Thank you. All are present, Mayor Peak.
All right, thank you. We have only one item on our closed session agenda tonight. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Could we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Coletti?
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Council members McAdams? Aye. Paduri?
Aye.
And Tomlinson?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the agenda.
The closed session item we have is public employment tonight, the city manager performance evaluation. I see we have Mr. Miller with us. Mr. Miller, do you wish to make public comment?
Nope.
All right. Well, that will now adjourn to closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. I will remove those.
Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. It's 6 p.m. It's a regular meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. We'll ask our city clerk, Ms. Kendall, will you please give us a roll call?
Mayor Peak?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith?
Here.
Council members Emilio?
Here.
Coletti?
Here.
McAdams? Here. Paduri?
Here.
And Tomlinson. I don't see Councilmember Tomlinson as of yet.
All right. She'll join us, I'm sure, very soon. Let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Paduri will lead us. Thank you.
Thank you. All rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Now turn to approval of the agenda. We have two items for closed session at the end of this meeting. I'd like to start those two items. I'd like to start closed session no later than 9:30, if at all possible. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to that point. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
So
to
moved,
approve
Mayor.
it. I'll just go second then.
Okay, thank you. May we have a vote, please?
Councilmember McAdams? Aye. Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Council members Tomlinson,
Aye.
Kaduri,
Aye.
and Coletti.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
And note that Councilmember Tomlinson has joined us. Moving on to council and staff announcements, I'll turn to our city attorney for closed session report outs. I believe we have 3 now, September 1st, September 8th, and tonight. Is that right?
Mr. Mayor, I was going to report on the September 8th and tonight. I believe that was the matter to be reported.
Okay, have we reported out the September 1st?
I do believe that we did, yes.
Oh, okay, during the regular
regular
meeting.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Starting in chronological order, the council did meet in closed session on the 8th of September, a closed session, and the topic was to consider conference with its real property negotiators concerning the portions of Sloat Avenue and Ocean View Avenue that relates to the ATC development site. Members of the council were all members attended. The real estate property negotiators in attendance for the city were the city manager, myself, and attorney Elizabeth Hull of Best and Krieger. The council provided a general discussion, general direction. A specific motion was made by Council Member Emilio and seconded by Councilmember Coletti to unanimously approve this, that the city direct its real property negotiators to commence negotiations that would lead to a market rate sale of portions of Sloat and Ocean View Boulevard necessary for the planned development of the ATC hotel project. The council specifically directed that this public announcement be made at this meeting. A second motion was made by Councilmember Coletti, seconded by Councilmember McAdams, to continue the discussion to a date uncertain and then to adjourn the closed session. The meeting ended at 5:30. It began at 4:30, so it was an hour long. As to earlier this afternoon, council did meet at 5 p.m. to consider a single item on the agenda. It's the city manager's performance evaluation. The focus of that was to discuss the process and format related to the evaluation of city manager's future performance. The council did have a general discussion, but did not complete that discussion. There was a motion made by Councilmember Tomlinson, seconded by Councilmember Emilio, to continue the discussion to the date of the next regular meeting, which will be October 6th, and that will be a special meeting to convene at 5 p.m. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 2 announcements. The first is that on Monday, October 4th, we will be convening a city staff training day. This is an all-day event required for city employees, full-time employees. The impact will be that City Hall and city offices and city facilities outside of the police department and the fire department will be closed on that day to the public. Parks, of course, will be open and that type of thing. But we will be closed so that we can complete this all-day training event. So we appreciate the council's understanding and the public's understanding, but want to make everybody aware, and we will continue to publicize that. And then secondly, I have an announcement also from our library director, Diana Godwin. Ms. Godwin.
Yes, hello. Greetings to everybody, to the mayor, council members, city staff, and members of the public. I just wanted to remind everyone that you are cordially invited to this Saturday's library rededication celebration. It will be held at Jewel Park between 1 and 4. We have a variety of local dignitaries who are going to be speaking it too. And there's going to be a lot of different fun things for children, families. We are open, the library will be open for visitors to tour. Through the library, we're going to have a number of volunteers stationed throughout the library to answer questions and give information about the transformation and the history of the library. Right. Thank you.
And
Mr. Laredo.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also in the vein of training, we have a further session under AB 1234. That's our Ethics and Brown Act training session that's mandatory. We have individuals that need to be taking that. We're going to be conducting that on Friday, October 29th at 9:30 in the morning. So if there's any member boards or commissions or council that need that training, also any key staff members that need that training, please communicate either with Sandra Kendall, our city clerk, or my office manager, Robin Rykowska, and we will certainly get the information to you as to how this will all be a Zoom session. So it'll be convenient for you to attend. Again, that's Friday, October 29th at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out to, sorry, my daughter's doing virtual piano lessons, so hopefully you can hear me, but just give a shout out to one of our newest tenants. Is part of one of our reports that we got to council. It was to let us know how the Point Pinos Grill has been doing, that we had them take up as a tenant about 6 months ago now, roughly speaking. And they had a pretty conservative glide slope for themselves, and they are beating all of their numbers at the moment by almost 220 some percent by my math. So just a fabulous job. I've been able to frequent there a couple times, and the transformation and the success of the grill is really great for the community. I'm very proud of the folks that are working there and talking to them. The city gets the rent from that location based on the revenue that happens. So with each successful month that they have, we get 4% of the sales for our rent. So that's great for the city's revenue as well. So I wish them continued success and increased sales, and it's a great job. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple announcements. September 18th is the return of the annual Coastal Cleanup Day from 9 a.m. to noon at various locations. Save Our Shores and community members will take place in this worldwide event. If you would like to sign up or find out where they will be cleaning up, you can go to the website, saveourshores.org, and click on the event page to sign up. We have been in this pandemic for 18 months, and our communities continue to be inundated with misinformation and falsehoods regarding the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccines. And so yesterday, the Monterey County Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution declaring COVID-19 health misinformation a public crisis in Monterey County. I just wanted to read the last statement. It says, and I quote, "Now therefore be it resolved that the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the county and all its residents thereof, declare COVID-19 health misinformation a public health crisis throughout Monterey County and the County of Monterey. The County of Monterey should commit to combat health misinformation and curb the spread of falsehoods that threaten the health and safety of our residents and visitors." And so I just think that we are the second county in California to declare the misinformation public health crisis. San Diego did that a couple of weeks ago. So I'm very proud of our county for taking that stand. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the museum Shifting Tides. There was only a couple of days left and was attended by several people, and it was an amazing exhibition, and it's a compliment to Carla at the museum. It was really, really amazing. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, if Sandra could put that up on the screen. Anyway, we're having this memorial for the soldiers that were lost, the 13 soldiers that were lost. And you could see that it's this Friday at 10 a.m. It'll probably go till 11. It says 10:45, but we're everybody's invited who's ever listening. There's a lot of posters around, and the mayor is also going to speak. We'll just wanted to put that up, and you've probably seen some of those posters around, but please come to honor our 13 soldiers that were fallen in Afghanistan. Thank you.
I have one announcement. We have some vacancies on the hearing officers panel, and I would like to impose upon our city attorney, Mr. Laredo, if you wouldn't mind giving us a very brief description of what a hearing officer does. It's an important role. It's a volunteer position.
Thank you. I'd be happy to. Hearing officer acts as a lay judge, basically hears the facts and circumstances of any challenge, any appeal, any contest that the individual will be bringing to the city, or in an enforcement action that the city has against a property owner. For instance, traffic citations are one form of hearings, other types of complaints. And the hearing officer needs to hear and evaluate the evidence and issue a written decision. There's no training, legal training required. It's application of common sense, but it's the ability to read the rules and regulations of the city and to apply them to the facts.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll now go out for general public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Daniel Miller, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. I would like you for a moment to think back to the last council meeting. If you remember, Councilmember McAdams chastised a young man for actions that he has apologized profusely for that he did when he was 15. Ms. McAdams praised the young woman who exposed the youthful indiscretion. Fair enough. Fast forward to last Friday. The Carmel Pinecone published a story about Miss McAdams having lied.
A privilege, Mayor. I don't think that this is appropriate.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
My time, please.
Oh, hold on, Mr. Miller. This is city activities.
Yes.
This isn't a time.
This has to do with COVID, which Miss McAdams was just talking about. It has to do with actions by a council member. And in 30 years of going to council meetings, I have never seen something like this stopped.
All right.
Okay?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Let's go to the city attorney and get a ruling as to why this would be stopped.
Mr. Laredo, is this a appropriate topic for public comment?
And somehow Ms. McAdams knows exactly what I'm going to say, I guess.
Okay, hold on. Mr. Laredo, I see you're muted.
I'm sorry, I could not get the mute button or my video to start.
That's okay. Is this appropriate for public comment?
From my understanding, these comments address the council member's private matters, not her public matters. And as such, I don't believe that they are appropriate.
All right.
Excuse me,
All right.
Mayor.
Thank
First
you,
of all,
Mr. Miller.
they're public in a newspaper. Second of all, Ms. McAdams made this public on social media, and that is
thank
what
you,
I'm
Mr.
moving to
Miller.
address, is the misuse of social media by Ms. McAdams.
All right, thank you. You've made your point. We have the next speaker, please.
Wow. Wow.
Anthony Cioni, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. And I also want to thank the city attorney for his reporting out of the report about the potential sale of a portion of Sloat Avenue and a portion of Ocean View. I have a concern. In his report, he states or has stated something along the lines that the suggestion or a vote was taken to proceed, I think, to hire an attorney or somebody to negotiate the sale, and that it be conditioned on the design of the ATC project. And what doesn't make sense to me is that the ATC project, number one, has not had a hearing before the Planning Commission. Number two is apparently the design has been revised. So how can you be spending money to negotiate something that we don't know? Don't you want to know what the approved project is going to be, or even what the revised design is going to be before you commence negotiations? That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'd like to pull item 9A, that's local emergency actions. We'll hear that immediately following the consent agenda. And pull item 9B, archaeological monitoring agreements. And let's hear that as item 12A. 12A, unfinished and ongoing business. Any other items council wishes to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing none, any items that the public wish to pull from the consent agenda?
I see no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
May I have a motion to approve the modified consent agenda, please?
Move for approval?
Second.
A vote, please.
Council members Emilio,
Aye.
Coletti,
Aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
Maduri,
Aye.
Tomlinson,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you. We've, council has just approved the September 1st meetings minutes. Also the September 8th special meeting minutes. We have held the second reading of an ordinance repealing the Pacific Grove Municipal Code and effectively ending the Golf Links Advisory Committee. We've held the second reading and adopted the code amendments for the conduct of special meetings and closed sessions. We've received reports from the check register and the core revenue status from Mary Lagaska. Thank you. We've received a preliminary year-end core revenue status report also from Mary Lagaska. And let's see. We've authorized support for the bylaws amendments for the League of California Cities Convention that Councilmember McAdams will be our representative. And we've confirmed appointment of Don Murphy to the Planning Commission. So that brings us to item 9A, local emergency actions. Mr. Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the time when we discuss actions that have been taken that need council approval or are going to be provided for informational purposes to the council and the city public and the general public in light of the global pandemic. We have two items to report out on this evening. One relates to the city's vaccine policy, and the other relates to the potential for in-person meetings. And to help me with this, I have Ms. Livian and Mr. Cassimi with me. So I'm going to first start with Ms. Livian about the vaccine policy, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Cassimi. So Ms. Livian, would you please give us an update? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff, and members of the community. So we anticipate the policy mandated vaccine or testing policy to be implemented in early October. Currently, we're meeting with the associations on discussion of the policy, as well as training staff on testing procedures.
Thank you, Ms. Livian. Mr. Cassimi, could I ask you to please give an update on the potential for in-person council meetings? Thank you.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, and members of the public. So we have done some testing with our internal staff with a hybrid meeting model. And we successfully tested it. So we are ready to move forward with in-person meetings. My recommendation would be to have the council and our staff join the demo to understand how the meeting process is going to work prior to making a decision to move in the hybrid meeting direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cassimi. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have this evening. Be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any public comment?
Mayor, I do not see any hands raised.
All right, council discussion. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to commend staff for pulling this program together quite quickly, and especially with a lot of moving parts. So thank you for that. And I look forward to the vaccination and testing to be implemented.
I have some, well, let me ask my questions first. Councilmember Tomlinson, it might help out. Could staff explain a little bit about what a hybrid meeting would be? And let's take it from three groups of people: council members, staff, and public. And just give us a few brushstrokes on what that hybrid plan is.
Sure, Mayor, if I may. A hybrid meeting, as we're calling it, would mean a meeting that would be televised by AMP, streamed via Zoom, allowing for council members that are interested and city staff, and potentially some members of the public to be in a room, but also allowing members of the public to Zoom in as well. And not only for watching, but also for participating. Does that make sense?
Sure. So Zoom and in person and broadcast.
Yes.
Okay. Just one follow-up question. How many council members would you anticipate could be accommodated in your plan?
Mr. Mayor, we could accommodate as many as are interested. I don't know how many are interested.
Okay, well, we all don't know that answer yet, but maybe we'll find out in a couple of minutes. Councilmember Tomlinson.
So I had the same type of question, Mayor, but and the answer was good, except I need to clarify. So it sounds like the public could participate a little bit in person, probably a capped amount of numbers, and on Zoom, where they could comment either way. The staff, same thing, so they could be in person or on Zoom, and then council too. I didn't hear that, but now it's making sense. And I think that having options, basically everyone has the same options, is what I would like to see. And we just had the first annual board meeting with 3CE today with quite a lot of over 100 people participating. And it was exactly that, a hybrid of staff, a hybrid of council members and city managers and whatnot, and a hybrid of public as well. So it worked great, and everybody was able to participate. So I hope that we will offer that as well.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you. I do have two questions. With regards to the public that would come and participate, are they going to be required to wear a face covering or show proof of vaccine or proof of negative test, like something like that? And then a comment, just for continuity of business, I would want to make sure that if there was an exposure or a positive case, that what we saw in Salinas is that they had to cancel a meeting. So I would want to be flexible. So if and when that happens, that we wouldn't, have to cancel city business, and we could just immediately, go into just a virtual only space. Thank you.
So Councilmember McAdams, through the mayor, this report out only relates to the technical capability of this concept. Certainly, we could take direction and set up whatever type of policy for council meetings that you would like to see. We would definitely have the ability, if we needed to, revert back to a Zoom-only environment to do that, of course.
All right, I think this is a good time for council members to weigh in on, let's see, the timing, like how soon do you want to start? Do you want to do a hybrid meeting at all, first of all? And when would you like to start a hybrid meeting? And would you like to participate in person or in Zoom? So three things that people, let's hear from some council members we haven't heard from. Don't be shy. Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. My jury is still up in the air on that.
Okay.
I kind of like the hybrid model, but because of family situations, I'm just not sure about meeting in person. Like I said, I'm up in the air on that. So.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. This is, I'm just trying to get a sense of where the council is headed. Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. I do like the hybrid model, but I would also want to look at the policy on how the public is what kind of policy are we framing for the public to attend the council meetings. But I'm in favor of the hybrid model, and depending on how long the policy is going to take, I'm looking at this at this is the Q4 anyway, maybe January, but I'm open to earlier too. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
I would stick with Zoom and through the holidays with the flu season, and the kids are back in school, and I just have to do everything I can to keep that going and not expose myself to a small space with lots of people for hours at a time. So I think it's great, and I would be fine seeing people in a different way on, some in person on a camera and whatnot, but I would continue through Zoom through December and then reevaluate if you wanted to know my opinion.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have kids at home and am doing everything that, my family can to keep them in school. And so that I definitely support a hybrid meeting, but I would be participating only via Zoom until, I would say until January. Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Tomlinson and McAdams here. I think we should keep doing Zoom. We've got all the bugs worked out, pretty effective with it, and then reconsider January 1st.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
I am comfortable with a hybrid model, but I hear from my colleagues, a lot of my colleagues would like to reevaluate in January, and I could go along with that as well, given the current status of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it could change. I mean, things seem to be changing all the time. So I don't want to put my feet in cement, as they say, on this issue right now, but I'd be comfortable with a hybrid and attending in person. And as soon as staff could get organized. But as I said, this daily changes and everything going in a positive direction and then a negative direction. I think it's just tough. It's a tough call. Thanks.
I think our city attorney is going to remind us about the governor's executive order about Zoom meetings. Mr. Laredo.
Thank you. That's precisely so. We have to keep in mind that our existing rules under the Brown Act, our exemption only applies till September 30th. The two bills have been passed by the legislature that would affect this. They're not consistent with each other. One would pretty much continue the status quo in terms of what your options are, and another would significantly impair them. The governor has not signed either yet. The governor has until the first week in October to sign those bills or to veto them. And if to further complicate it, if he might sign one, he might sign both. And if he does sign both, it really matters what order he signs them in, because the one bill, in fact, would revise a portion of the following bill, and the order in which he signs them will affect what rules you can apply. And then finally, if the governor will still have his executive power to declare emergency and do what he has already done through September 30th, and to give you temporary rules under the Brown to affect the Brown Act. So I just want to emphasize, we don't know yet what those rules will be. We will have to abide by whatever the law is, and that will impair this. Your discussion is very apt, assuming that you do have the authority to have a remote or hybrid meeting. This is all relevant in that context. I just wanted to ground it in the legal reality.
Mr. Laredo, I assume you will keep us posted in this area.
As soon as we know.
All right. So I'm hearing from council a go slow. If I can encapsulate all the comments, I'm hearing positive comments about hybrid, but I'm also hearing comments about if legally we can continue to meet via Zoom, that we should probably do so through the end of this calendar year, which is only 3 months actually after tonight. So Mr. Harvey, are you hearing anything different, or council members, do you want to adjust that message to staff? Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just, that slipped my mind, the whole legal aspect of it, but I would definitely, that's kind of one of those changes that I wasn't really talking about those types of changes, but that change will definitely affect my opinion. And if it's the law or the rules that are set forth by the governor or the state legislature direct us to go back to in-person meetings, I'm definitely comfortable with that. Or a hybrid, I'm comfortable with that as well. And before January 1st. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I assume we will stay on the right side of the law in terms of our meetings. I take that as a given. Mr. Harvey, do you wish any other feedback on this?
So go slow and just continue to check in, I think is what I'm hearing.
Yes, it sounds like, well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not hearing a need to hurry up and run the tests and get prepared right away for the next meeting. And I'm also assuming that the governor will sign one or both of the bills allowing us to meet via Zoom, at least through October. So, all right, that was a report out. So we'll move on to our regular agenda, which is item 11A, which is Jewel Park appeal. Director Go, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Peak and members of the City Council. I do have a brief presentation for this item, which I will share my screen. Very good. Okay. Before I begin my presentation, I would just like to state that this is a very unusual situation that we're in. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Let me back up just a moment. If you would please bear with me.
Would you like me to stop sharing, Mayor?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
This is a quasi judicial hearing, and I'll defer to our city attorney to make a few statements about what a quasi judicial hearing is. We don't do them very often, so it's worthwhile just to have a little preamble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As in a quasi judicial proceeding, each of you as council members that are participating will be acting as judges in this matter. You need to be making your decision based upon the record that's before you, based upon presentations during the public participation portion of this, but you cannot make your decisions based upon your own personal knowledge or anything that's not in the record. This is different than legislative decisions in that sense. The applicant will be given an opportunity to present. That's Mr. Dan Go. And then the property owner who's affected by this also will be given an extended amount of time to participate as well. And then, of course, any member of the public is allowed to comment on that, and that is evidence as well for you to consider. But once the record is closed, then you can debate, and you should be tying your decision to the facts that are in the record. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. This is the right time for me to ask about ex parte communication by any of the council members. And I'm going to need council members to just report out if you had ex parte communication or not. Councilmember Emilio?
No.
Councilmember Coletti?
No.
Councilmember Tomlinson?
No.
Councilmember Pedori?
No.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith?
No.
And Councilmember McAdams?
None to report.
All right. Well, it looks like I'm the only one that asked to report out. And on July 23rd, I met with the city arborist at the elm tree and discussed the condition of the tree, the sidewalk, options for the sidewalk, and safety concerns and the condition, well, the condition of the tree is the main safety concern. All right. The procedure for the hearing will go like this. Mr. Go, who I've just interrupted, will continue his presentation, and the City Public Works is the appellant. And then following Mr. Go's presentation, then we'll go out for public comment. I'd like to have public comment from the original appellant, which is Ms. Perwins, if I've got their name pronounced correctly. And she'll have 10 minutes. And then we'll continue on with public comment from anyone else with 3 minutes. And then we'll close the record and then have council discussion. Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just request that if there's a significant number of public commenters that we have a 2-minute session, because we received a lot of emails and I believe that a lot of the information might be contained in those emails. And so that I would just make that request.
All right, thank you. Okay, without further ado, we'll go back to Director Go. If you please give us your presentation. And this will be your entire presentation. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor Peak.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So as I was stating, this is a very unique situation. I've been before the City Council numerous times presenting tree appeals in the past, but I've never been the applicant or the appellant. We've always been before the City Council in efforts to try to retain a tree or present findings in a situation where it was a private tree that was being appealed either by the homeowner or another resident. So I just wanted to set the stage with that this is a first where we've had an appeal come forth from a tree that's noted on public property. So with that being said, I will begin my presentation on the tree appeal for the American elm, which is located on the westerly end of Jewel Park. So just before I get into the presentation, I'd just like to state my recommendation, which is tonight to hold a de novo public hearing for tree removal permit application 21-199. And as was stated earlier by the city attorney, that's basically start from new. And then I am asking the City Council to approve a tree permit 21-199, allowing the removal of one American elm at Jewel Park, overturning the August 17th, 2021 decision of the Beautification and Natural Resources Commission to uphold the tree appeal submitted by Patricia Perwin and Charles Schwartz. So tonight we are asking for the removal of the tree. So some brief background. City staff's been monitoring this American elm for over 20 years. We've replaced the sidewalk and the roadway twice in that time frame. This would be the third time. The city arborist has conducted a level 2 assessment of the tree, which is more extensive than just a visual assessment. So some timelines, because we've been working on this since July. In July 12th, the tree was posted for removal. On July 16th, Public Works crews removed the sidewalk and asphalt so we could better evaluate what we were looking at on the tree. The next day on July 17th, the city arborist reviewed the conditions and prepared his level 2 arborist report. On July 22nd, an appeal was filed by Charles Schwartz and Patricia Perwin. On August 17th, that appeal was heard before the BNRC. The appeal was upheld, rejecting the tree removal. On August 24th, Public Works submitted an appeal of the BNRC and posted the subject tree, with the information so anybody could join in tonight for this hearing. So what are the findings? It does appear that the tree is in good health with good color, but let me remind you that it only takes a little cambium, which is the cell layer, to keep a tree thriving. The root masses of this tree have created a significant tripping and driving hazards. The roots are dominant on the easterly edge of the tree, with heaving occurring. The roots really spread in towards the park. The roots are limited on the roadside, and that's primarily due to the 20 years of past trimmings and shavings. Here's some pictures of that. You can see the sidewalk lift that's occurred towards the park, creating a significant trip hazard, an uneven walking surface within our property. This sidewalk is the responsibility of the city. You can see on the picture on the right, the parking lane and extending out into the travel lane, the extensive damage these roots have done. We've noticed that decay is present, and we've determined this by a technique that's used to determine hollow areas. It's with a sounding mallet. The subject tree has significant decay, which has caused hollow areas in the trunk, 12 inches up the trunk, and also down into the root zone. The decay is on the westerly side of the tree, the same side of that tree is leaning on. If it continues to lean further, it could collapse upon itself and fail. This picture indicates the extensiveness of the decay up into the tree. And then this picture shows it going down into the root system. And you see that buttress root right there, which is trying to correct itself for the decay. We weren't able to discover this until we removed the sidewalk and the curb. We have safety concerns. When a tree evaluation was done for the level 2 assessment, we determined what would be the targets if the tree failed. Pedestrians, both in the park and on the sidewalk. Pedestrians on the sidewalk across the roadway, Forest Avenue. Vehicles, both parked and traveling. Traveling vehicles is my biggest fear here. And structures. We've explored all options, and tonight you'll hear members of the public saying, explore the options. You've already heard it. We've done this. I don't want to remove trees. Public Works does not want to spend money to remove healthy trees. We've explored root pruning and reinstalling the sidewalk in its current location. We've explored moving the sidewalk east into the park. We've explored moving the sidewalk west into the parking. Let me start with the roots. The roots have been significantly pruned already numerous times over the 20-year span. This would be the third time. They've been cut or shaved to reinstall the asphalt for the parking in the roadway and the sidewalk. More cutting or shaving of the roots will continue to weaken the tree. We've evaluated the sidewalk. Can we relocate it into the park towards the east? But then we determined it would impact additional trees that are healthy, and we require significant root pruning of the subject tree and a very nice pine tree that's right behind it. We looked at relocating into the parking lane. This is not recommended. Forest is a narrow road already. I do not want to move pedestrians closer to the travel lane. Also, if we were to move the sidewalk into that parking lane, we would lose 2 parking spots in an already congested area. But we're moving pedestrians under the tree, the lean side of the tree that's already weakened. I cannot advise that. Our recommendation is removal. The tree is in poor health with advanced decay, even though it looks healthy. It has a predominant lean towards the west on the decay side. It has a high target rating. It's causing a significant trip hazard and a liability to the city. This is city property. If the tree is retained, the risk is extremely high. Public Works and the city arborist have reviewed and explored all options. Public Works is responsible for the safety of the public. By allowing for the removal of this tree, we are acting responsible. I would allow, our city arborist would allow the removal of this tree anywhere throughout town, public or private property. Municipal Code 12-02-040, pruning or removal of protected trees, sets criteria for removal such as this. Is the tree high risk? Is there damage being caused by the tree? Is the tree removal necessary due to wildfire risk? No, but it is determined to be a nuisance because of all the other criteria. The subject tree meets 3 of these criteria. You do have some options, but as I stated, we have explored all alternatives. I will need guidance if the tree is not allowed to be removed. I do not know how to reinstall the sidewalk safely without further degrading this tree or other trees. If the city council opts to allow the tree to be retained, I'm going to ask for a recommendation on how you would like me to reinstall that sidewalk. If no recommendation is presented, I will have no choice to continue to shave the roots further, which will, as I stated already in the presentation, continue to weaken the tree. I'm available for questions, and so is our city arborist who's on the Zoom meeting today. We've provided you with a very robust staff report laying out all the findings and our assessment of the tree. There's numerous attachments, including Mr. Weisfuss's arborist report. That concludes my presentation. And I'm very somber about this. I feel strongly, it's not my position to go remove trees unless we truly feel it needs to come out. I am worried about this tree. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now go out for public comment, and we'll start with Ms. Berwin, 10 minutes, if that's sufficient. Ms. Kendall, looks like we're ready for public comment. Are we having technical difficulties?
Mr. Mayor, our city clerk is having technical difficulties. Let me assist with our deputy city clerk. Give me a moment. I'm sorry.
And we'll want to start public comment with the original appellants.
Right. Okay.
And they get 10 minutes.
Okay, so sorry, Mr. Mayor. Do we know how they are logged in this evening? Maybe they could just raise their hand.
Hi, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay, great. Our city clerk is back. I still think the question remains, though. We need to know who the appellants are to identify.
Okay. So it appears they have their phone number is 465, and so they do have their hand raised. Are we at the point where I can unmute them and allow them to speak?
Yes, please,
Okay.
10 minutes. And
Thank
then
you.
everyone else after them, 3 minutes.
Thank you. So I have Charles and Patty. You have the floor.
Welcome.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
We
Hello,
can.
welcome.
Hello? Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, excuse me. Greetings, Mayor Peak and members of the City Council. My husband and I have been living across the street from this elm tree for 8 years and are able to see its upper canopy from almost every window of our house. Therefore, as a University of California trained naturalist, I've come to know this tree exceptionally well. I have seen firsthand the valuable goods and services this tree provides our community, free of charge and on a daily basis. From the families I observe who take advantage of its extensive shade to picnic there during farmers market on Mondays, to the book lovers I notice who take advantage of the sound barrier it creates from passing traffic and read there on the grass, to the squirrels I see cavorting in that vast upper canopy and who, along with an impressive list of local birds, feed on its prolific supply of seeds and buds, to the deer I behold who eat its leaves and twigs each year in spring, and to my wonderful neighbors whose property values increase by as much as 5 to 18% simply by being in proximity to this tree. And I'm appalled that its removal is under consideration tonight. But fortunately, at last month's BNRC meeting, my husband and I appealed the tree's removal. Our appeal was upheld, and the city arborist stated that if this tree's roots were not pruned a third time, but alternative measures were taken instead, its risk factor to the public would be reduced to moderate and with care, stay that way or even improve. Now, in light of this encouraging prognosis, why would we not prioritize keeping the tree healthy over placing a sidewalk too close to its trunk? Our city forefathers planted this tree prior to the existence of sidewalks. In these dangerous times of severe drought and climate change, when well-established trees like this rare elm are only escalating in value, let us likewise change our city protocols in how we deal with trees and start by preserving this beautiful elm of only moderate risk rather than doing away with it for the sake of convenience. Thank you. I would now like to turn the microphone over to my husband for additional comment.
Hello?
Welcome.
Someone there?
Welcome. We can hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah, this is Charles. Greetings, Mayor Peak and the City Council members. Tonight I pose the question, what do urban trees need to thrive? Beyond sunlight, they mostly need moisture. Typically and often, they are deprived of this by hardscape. What happens then? The tree roots rise to the surface seeking moisture and they crack the hardscape. The city arborist has stated that pruning the roots of a tree and reinstalling hardscape where it was weakens the tree, yet root pruning is a standard acceptable practice in forestry. What is needed are new city protocols to meet tree needs for moisture. In general, there are grates to put around the trees. A length of PVC pipe can be put down in the roots for deep watering, causing the roots to follow that water down below the hardscape surface. We are not reinventing the wheel. There are many known ways to do this. In this tree's case, it is lucky. It is strong and more than half its roots go into Jewel Park where they get plenty of moisture and stay below grass level. Its roots are intertwined with those of two pines near it, and in this way, these three trees support each other, stabilize each other, share canopy with each other to shade their roots and prevent moisture evaporation on a hot day. Remove this elm and the two other pines suffer destabilization. If the sidewalk were curved away from the trees into the parking places, this would be give more room for the elm's roots to grow on that side. If a PVC pipe were implanted there and water supplied to it monthly, the roots would follow the water down and not crack the sidewalk further out. This has been tried in many cities with success. If liability is still a concern after these measures are taken, the elm would be cabled to another tree inside the park. What an opportunity we have here to learn tree care and true tree maintenance to be a causative factor in this tree's thriving. I thank you, Mayor Peak and City Council, for listening to our points of view in regard to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tom Aikman, you have the.
Welcome. Mr. Aikman, welcome.
Mr. Aikman, I'm having trouble.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I'm Tom Aikman. I'm the current chair of the Beautification and Natural Resources Commission. And we did hear this appeal last month. And it was, you've just heard two very compelling arguments on the two sides of this. We heard the same thing. We came to a split decision. It was a 4-3 vote to try whatever we could try to save the tree. We were very, very cognizant of the public works position that this is a public safety hazard. We were also hearing some clues that it's not an imminent fall, that there may be several years of life left in this tree. In the meantime, it is a beautiful tree. It is an elm, which is unusual here. And we wondered, the four of us who voted to try to save it, if it's not time to be taking some extraordinary measures to try to save mature trees. We're in the era of climate change. The city has rarely gone out of its way to try to save trees. Maybe it's time we start like other cities do. We're thinking maybe if the sidewalk was relocated into the street, it's true we would lose a parking space and maybe two, but we could cover the roots with a steel grating and not cut them anymore. We could maybe put in those traffic barriers that other cities use to keep the sidewalk traffic separate from the passing traffic, cars, and then possibly cable it to the closest tree is not in good shape, but the next closest is, so that if the tree and when the tree did fail, they will all fail eventually. It wouldn't fall onto traffic, and it would give time to get in there and remove it. Then it could be years from now. And that would give the city time to plant some replacement trees in the park and get them up and growing and ready to take over for the wildlife value. That was our 4-3 vote. And what persuaded me to vote that way, honestly, in addition to the two appellants, and that was a very compelling argument, we heard from 23 other residents on this issue. We've had tree appeals, 1 or 2 a year. We've never heard from more than 1 or 2 people siding with a tree one way or the other. To have 21 of 23 people speaking up to try to save a tree convinces me that maybe it's time that it's to invest in this one and try some extraordinary measures and see how long we can save it and see what we can learn from it. Because with climate change and the loss to wildfires and the way we're losing trees, each existing mature trees becomes that much more valuable and that much more precious. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Kendall, how many speakers do we have?
It looks that if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, raised to hands if they would like
right.
to speak.
Thank you. Are we still having, looks like we're having technical difficulties still.
Yeah, it's, I'm not sure what's going on here. I'll ask her to unmute. Carrie Bertoli, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council members. Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate it. I just want to say first and foremost that I do not want the tree to be removed. And there's just a few things that I would like you to think about when you ponder the fate of this beautiful tree. I urge you to consider the fact that the arborist's report may be assessing a higher level of potential risk based on the scenario of the elm tree's roots being pruned and covered by a sidewalk a third time. When I went back and watched the BNRC meeting from last month, I heard the arborist say that structural restrictions around the tree have caused its roots to be deflected back towards the park. And this question's already been addressed a little bit, but what if the area under the tree where the old sidewalk used to be was covered with a permeable surface? Would this help stabilize the tree by allowing deep roots to grow on the street side? I would also urge you to look at the tree's ability to heal. If the cambium and bark are strong, as has been indicated on this particular tree, and if the tree's canopy is lush and healthy, then perhaps the tree is more resilient than we think. And maybe it isn't in as much danger of falling. Add to that the fact that the cavity at the base of the tree appears to be closing up and healing on its own without the aid of a mesh, which is sometimes used. Given everything that the tree has been through with repeated pruning on its roots, this is extraordinary and noteworthy and should give us all pause. Also, please consider the potential impact on the pine tree that's right next to the elm if the elm were to be removed. The two trees seem to share a canopy and each has adapted to the proximity of the other by not developing branches on the sides that face each other. That coupled with the indisputable fact that the root systems are undoubtedly intertwined should be enough reason to disturb the soil around them as little as possible. So I appreciate all of you and the work that you do to keep our city thriving and safe. And I believe that we can achieve that while at the same time supporting this jewel of a tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
There it is. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Wait, there it is again. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
If the city is truly committed to preserving, protecting, and even expanding its urban forest and truly understands what that means, that we need our mature trees for their superior environmental, health, and aesthetic benefits, especially as we experience the impacts of climate change, then the arborist should be given the message that the goal is to save the tree while at the same time protecting the public. The goal should not be to get the tree out of the way for infrastructure with the excuse of protecting the public. If the arborist had a client who wanted to save the tree, then he would provide options for doing that while not sacrificing public safety. In this case, his client is also his boss, whose priorities do not include saving the tree. Cable, supports, rerouting the sidewalk, and other measures can be devised to keep the tree while the new tree that Public Works promises to plant is getting established. Please provide the public with the continued benefits that this tree offers, a beloved tree in a beloved park, with marvelous shade on warm days, doing what we need it to do to mitigate the effects of climate change. Please deny Public Works appeal and be the responsible client who chooses to do what's necessary to let the tree live out its life safely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Marquardt, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Peak. I'm hearing this for the first time, but you know, we do play golf at the Pacific Grove Golf Links, and there's beautiful trees out there too. But you have to look out when you're playing underneath one of those cypress trees because they lose huge limbs when they get old. And the pine trees, I'm also a volunteer at Point Lobos. And when those trees age out, they really age out and they do become dangerous. I'm all for preserving trees, but I would like to ask Public Works a question, and that is, how old are the pines that are close to the elm tree? And what is the life expectancy of this elm tree that we're talking about in Jewel Park? Would you mind answering my question? I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anthony Cioni, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I have several comments. One is procedurally. I believe this is in the coastal zone, and I don't believe there's any indications that there is a coastal development permit associated with this project, or an application for a CDP, or a waiver for a CDP. I think that was completely missed. So I think procedurally, the protection of mature trees according to the Coastal Act and the city's LCP would require a CDP to remove it. That's number one. Number two, the alternatives that were identified by the city arborist and the applicant failed to consider transplanting the tree. According to the University of California at Berkeley and the University of Iowa, the American elm trees are easily and successfully transplanted. So that should have been part of this analysis. It sounds like it was not. And if it could be transplanted, say moved nearby, easterly, then maybe it would get better watering around the tree and survive. And as I said, those studies indicate that transplanting is successful. I have, as an architect, had street trees and trees on properties successfully transplanted using the California Department of Transportation guidelines for transplanting trees. I think that should have been considered, was not. I think you have alternatives, and I think you should really look at the option to retain the tree, look after the tree before you look after the parking space, provide permeable landscaping around the tree, or move it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have extension. The last three numbers are 333. you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. This is such an important discussion, and thank you very much for having this and taking it as seriously as you all seem to be. Planet's trees are essential for sequestering CO2. Absolutely a top priority when considering any tree, and more importantly, mature trees. Another concern is the Audubon Society's tragic report in recent years of the loss of 30% of our planet's birds since 1970. 30% is a huge number of birds to have lost around our planet. And this is a well-respected Audubon Society report that was a very long-term study. And this includes loss of birds in Pacific Grove and on the Monterey Peninsula. And I myself see it when I'm out walking after 20 years here, marked losses of birds compared to what I used to see when I would go out walking 20 years ago. Mature trees are like our senior citizens. They provide unique and rich benefits to our communities. It's not easy to replace them once they're gone. And as the original appellant speaker said, she sees the prolific production of food for the birds and squirrels and all the wonderful contributions this tree makes. And we are at a point in our planet's history and our human social history where we do seriously need to just adjust our thinking a bit to start considering how much more important it is for us to care for our planet than it is for us to worry about things such as parking spaces, which are practical considerations, but caring for the planet and all the life on the planet is vital to everyone's survival. And I appreciate hearing so much from all the different people about creative solutions and opportunities for thinking outside the box. Transplanting is a consideration. You know, there is concern about the trees' roots being intertwined, and trees, as we know, create families just like all other life forms do on the planet. And if these trees have been established there for a long time, certainly they have relationships that we don't understand and are scientific, but go beyond our comprehension as human animals. So if you can please at least pause on any considerations of taking it down until you've given this tree a chance, as they were suggesting, deep root watering. These trees are trying so hard to get water. I see that everywhere in urban spaces around California. And you have an opportunity to do something that will be, I think, richly rewarding for the community. Thank you very much for taking my comments.
Thank you.
April, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hey there, good evening. My name's April. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name's April Zobel. Thanks for hearing this important issue tonight and potentially allowing this elm tree to remain a part of our community. Just reiterating, you know, the concept of the third root pruning being a high hazard risk, and the fact that if it's avoided, the tree risk drops down to moderate, as well as the concept of the trunk. You know, at the BNRC meeting, the arborist said that the trunk was pretty much at a straight angle, but leaning a little toward the street, most likely because there were no large roots on that side. And so once the roots got under the sidewalk, they did a U-turn and went back into the park. So by curving the sidewalk out into the two parking places, as was mentioned, the space is given for this tree's roots to grow out away from it. Also reiterating what Charles had to say about the PVC pipe, if that were to be installed into the ground at the new sidewalk border and then water poured down into the pipe, the roots will actually follow the water and go under the hardscape without harming it. And this is standard practice in some cities to prevent hardscape cracking or buckling. And its success depends on the city's willingness to regularly put the water down the PVC pipe. Eventually, it will actually take less time and effort to water than it does to replace hardscape. And with this practice, our city will save time, money, and our trees. Our community accepts and desires the beauty of these trees, their calming effect on us, and their shade, which cools and gives protection from the sun and provides freshness to the air. But it's sad for me to see that when the tree has needs and sends roots to the surface for moisture and cracks hardscape, our first reaction is to hurt the tree by pruning its roots, and then we ignore it by putting the hardscape back exactly where it was. So we haven't attempted to curve sidewalks around trees yet. Over by Fandango's, the asphalt goes about 2 inches away from the tree trunks, and those trees are clearly not happy. And I know it's easier for the city to do it this way, and I know it's simpler and familiar as it's the way that it's always been done. But like Tom said, I really believe that these current times are calling us to do better. The climate crisis is really in our faces, and we can't ignore it or our responsibility to help. And this tree is our opportunity to do something different. As far as the poor health and decay that were mentioned, the bark around the decay, it will continue to grow. Public Works has stated that the cambium layer there is healthy and active. It's the cambium that produces the bark, and it's the bark that makes the tree strong and stand tall. It's not the heartwood. The city arborist has said that trees compartmentalize decay and that elms actually do it very well. This tree is strong and it will thrive more when it's no longer tormented by root pruning and a sidewalk riding against its trunk. So please let us keep this tree for our community, for the world's needs, and give the direction to curve the sidewalk into the 2 parking spaces that can meet the requirements and resolve the safety issue in the new paradigm of meeting the tree's needs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer Haydu, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you. I did send a letter to the council, but I'd like to read it into the public comment for the sake of the record. I'd like to make a few public comments with regards to agenda item 11A under the regular items for September 15th, which is the question of whether to disregard the decision of the BNRC to uphold the appeal not to cut down the elm tree next to Jewel Park. The staff recommendation to the council is to set aside the decision based on a staff desire to remove the tree. The concerns of the staff being presented to the council were all articulated at the BNRC meeting and again tonight, along with quite a bit of public comment. BNRC members asked numerous questions and had substantial discussion with the head of public works, the arborists, and others. After all of it, the BNRC voted to uphold the appeal. Staff did not get the decision they wanted, so now they are asking the council to override that decision. I too listened to the entire meeting, all the discussion, comments, and questions. I noticed that when the question about whether the tree in question was clearly at its imminent death, the arborist equivocated. Would the tree die shortly, within 3 years? He couldn't say for sure. Rather than choosing to do everything possible to keep the tree alive, even for a limited amount of time, the line of argument was cut it down and replace it with a new tree, or 2 or 3, as was stated, to make up for the loss. There are many reasons why replacing a mature tree with a canopy structure this elm provides is not a simple cut and paste job. Larger, older trees sequester more carbon, provide greater canopy, and may well be feeding, communicating, and protecting other trees in proximity. For your reference, see the groundbreaking research of Dr. Susan Simard, who authored Finding the Mother Tree. I provided those references in the letter. As many researchers who study climate change and carbon capture explain, while trees capture huge amounts of carbon, they need to remain growing for a long time to be effective storers. It takes 100 years to see the benefits of newly planted trees. That means that multiple generations of caretakers. I dare say the city of PG will go through several city staff in that time period. Does the city have a long-term vision and plan for keeping trees healthy into old age? There was a fair amount of weight given to the value of the 2 parking spots being affected by the roots and the sidewalk structure. I found this to be especially curious. First of all, can we all just stop and remember that the purpose of the park is to bring people into contact with nature? Isn't it ironic that we would prioritize the placement of cars over the roots of a tree in a park? Think about it. In this line of thinking, it says it is crucial to drive your car and be able to park every inch of sidewalk surrounding the supposed important set aside of nature.
Thank you, Ms. Hadou. Appreciate your comments. We received your email.
Thank you.
Kim, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. You know, in the news, as we watch the fire lick the trunks of our iconic sequoia trees, we really need to think about each individual mature tree. I myself grow trees, and I know how difficult it is to get them to survive in climate change now. So it could be a couple of years before we even knew whether a newly planted tree would make it or not. So I really hope that you think long and hard about ways that we might be able to save this tree, or at least extend it for a bit while these new trees are planted and get a chance to survive. I would also ask that the new trees that may be planted be upper canopy, something that would help our wildlife, because we're seeing a lot of ornamental trees go in, which really don't have the same value. And again, I ditto everybody previously that's called in about how important these trees are for both the oxygen and our wildlife. I also ask that the city look at all of our other trees that are in the sidewalks and take care of them right now with grading around them, so that we don't have to face this problem again in the future with another mature tree being taken down because it's buckled the sidewalk or is hazardous at that point. I have seen multiple trees already come down in the sidewalks, and in some areas there's been no replacements. Monterey has been planting trees in their sidewalks, but Pacific Grove not so much, and we're getting a lot of the smaller trees going in. As far as losing two parking spaces, you know, we're about to lose 10 times more parking spaces if further development goes through. So I think 2 parking spaces is worth losing for a mature tree. So please consider what you're doing for future generations and just take all options into thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kendall, how many future speakers, additional speakers?
I only see one more hand raised, and that's now 2. And then yes, so Rebecca.
Welcome.
Here. Mr. City Manager, can you
Okay, I'm sorry. I need to unmute. Kim, is that correct?
She just spoke.
Just spoke.
Or are we on? I'm sorry, I've lost track of which speaker we're on.
Rebecca, I think.
Mr. Mayor, do you recall that there was an announced person that was speaking next? I'm sorry.
I thought it was Rebecca.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
Oh. No,
Sorry.
I'm not on.
No, you're not. My speaker's turned down. My apologies, Mr. Mayor.
It's Rebecca Lee. Mr. City Manager.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kendall, what?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Oh, thank God. Thank you. I couldn't find the unmute button. I'm sorry. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for hearing me on this issue. I want to review what we now know from experts since looking at this elm tree. We know trees are of great value, increasing property value, supplying people with beauty and calm, and necessary as climate change turns into crisis. The value of trees is increasing tremendously with the loss of so many to drought and fires. This elm is particularly high in value because mature trees draw so much, the maximum carbon dioxide from the air, and tall canopy provide home for birds. As elms live more than 300 years, this tree can help us for centuries. We know that trees need moisture to be stable. This tree gets moisture from Jewel Park, and when the sidewalk is curved out into the parking places, it will get more moisture and its roots will grow toward the street. When a PVC pipe is installed for deep watering, it will not buckle the hardscape again. We know trees can live with holes in their bark if the cambium layer is healthy and producing bark, which this tree is, because the bark, not the heartwood, is what keeps a tree upright. We know this elm tree can actually heal its hole because it has been doing so. We know that trees compartmentalize decay so it won't spread, and that elms are particularly good at this and are highly disease resistant. We know that this elm tree does not exhibit any signs of a distressed or dying tree. There are no dead branches or dying branches. The leaves and canopy are both vibrant. There are no cracks in the bark or bark that is peeling off. We know this tree is a moderate risk tree and is protected under city code. What we are afraid of is whether to have faith that new ways of doing things can work. We are still afraid of liability. Looking at liability, let's say we curve the sidewalk out around the trunk into the parking places and wait for the roots to grow out on that side. Even though there are no outward signs of trouble, we want to be cautious. So we attach a cable from the elm to another tree. It may not be needed, but it gives us peace of mind and liability insurance. We trim the street side branch an extra step to cover ourselves. We put wood chips down where the old sidewalk used to be to protect the new roots from light and air. We have taken 4 intelligent actions that are responsive to this situation. This reasonable behavior is beyond reproach. We have covered our liability. Yes, this is an additional expense, but it is a necessary investment in learning and practicing new ways to do things. What we get back in our hands are the alternative plans, the structural forms, and the new concrete number measures that are all now in our repertoire. I don't believe it will only be the elm that dies if you vote to remove it tonight, but that the city is dying too because it won't adapt or change to create better ways. Please uphold this appeal and direct Public Works, as they've requested you to do, to reroute the sidewalk to curve out into the parking spaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, bear with me here. I don't know that I see any more hands raised. I'm looking. I don't see any more hands raised at this point, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll now close.
I'm sorry. Inga Lawrence or Dahmer has her hand raised now. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. You
Welcome.
unmuted me, but thank you very much. That was such an eloquent presentation on the last. I should have left it at that, but I'm going to say that the city, if it's going to walk its talk of wanting to keep trees, it's going to have to adapt and change to address all the issues of climate change and mature trees. Just like taking, science and medicine have prolonged life, although not as much right now. We've lost some, but we are the senior citizens. That tree is a senior citizen. And I think it's really time that the best practices of the city look at or hear all the wonderful suggestions that were given tonight to save the life and beauty of this tree. We need them. We need them so desperately. And I think that we have been damaging trees by all this root shaving and paving over. And and buckling the sidewalk? What happened to permeable pavers? What happened to the grading? What happened to the, and another parking spot? Well, what's a parking spot on that? It's blocked off many times for any other public work kind of project anyway, or the farmer's market or anything. But we've got to start changing best practices because the old ones are not clearly working. And if this city is going to adapt and thrive, yes, the mindset has to be changed. Don't destroy. Figure out a way to make it work. And she's a grand old lady and has a life expectancy long over ours. So save her. Learn something new. Figure out a way. Try and do a little research. Don't just chop off her roots. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment?
I didn't see any, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, we'll close public comment, bring back to council for council discussion. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Great set of calls and a great number of emails as well. In fact, I think my time on council, this is the most amount of email on a single topic that I've ever noticed us receiving. So there's a passion there, and it was certainly spoken to during public comment tonight, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate the message. I really think we need to think about what it's like to be a tree or any species, any non-human species today. We kind of put ourselves at the top of the food chain, and anything less than us is kind of considered, we have the authority of life and death. And I think that can be very problematic, certainly not for this, not just for this tree, but for us. So there was one caller who mentioned, I thought this was just a great synthesis of the problem. She said, we need a new paradigm of meeting the tree's needs or any other species needs. And that's spot on. And that certainly goes for the habitat that the tree provides as well. So it is an ecosystem. And we need to start thinking in terms of that instead of our just rectilinear idea of what landscaping should be. And that goes for the parking. We can have a bulb out there. And I think, we talk about giving up a space, but look how many spaces we gave up for parklets so that we can accommodate some of our businesses. Well, how about accommodating this tree? So I'm advocating for something much larger than the tree. And I think so are the callers actually. And, we identify ourselves as Tree City. Well, that's what it takes, is having a new paradigm. And as well as, honoring all the work that went into our LCP. And Mr. Ciani mentioned the fact that this is in the coastal zone. I hadn't even considered it. I thought that was interesting. So I understand, I get it, that the public works sees this as an inconvenience. And quite frankly, I didn't appreciate them dumping the problem on us. Simply saying, well, if you want that tree, you're gonna have to tell us how to do it. Well, boy, I certainly think you heard a lot of good suggestions tonight. And really it's up to Public Works to come up with some creative ideas for saving this tree. I don't know about transplanting. That sounds a little problematic to me, but Mr. Ciani's research, I value that. He mentions that it's possible, especially with this species, but you've got other mitigating other factors like, it being entwined with another root system, et cetera, et cetera. But I think if we're gonna honor the values that we espouse and some of our our council goals and in our land use plan, et cetera, we need to start embracing this new paradigm. Otherwise, it's going to come back and it's going to embrace us and it's going to sink us in the long run. So yes, it is a single tree, but it's much larger than just a single tree. It's a new way of thinking. It's a new way of implementing and outreaching to other communities to see how they do it. Let's look at this as an opportunity for finding new ways to solve problems. And I'm all for it. So I would encourage my colleagues to consider rejecting the appeal, upholding the BNRC's decision, and let's look for some creative solutions instead of just the knee-jerk, let's chop it down. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all of the community members who have sent in their emails and comments, commented this evening. You know, I really appreciate the advocacy and passion. And I also watched the BNRC's meeting and really appreciated that lengthy discussion and would like to thank the BNRC members as they were, you know, very prepared for this issue. So I've been trying to immerse myself as much as possible and learn as much as possible about this, but I am not an arborist. So I do have some questions for Mr. Go regarding the BNRC discussion. There was a lot of talk about cabling the tree, and I'm wondering if you can speak to that. What is the purpose of the cabling, and is that a temporary or a permanent solution?
Councilmember, through the mayor, the purpose of cabling a tree would be to support it. So if it does fail, it fails in the direction of the cable, or to provide that extra support. So this tree has got some known decay on the lean side, which is the westerly side of the tree. So a cable towards the park would provide that support, pulling the support away from the lean of the tree, if that makes sense. And maybe I'll have a head shake from Mr. Weisfuss if that was correct. Otherwise, he could probably elaborate because he is the arborist here. But that's what cabling would do, would be just simply support the tree. Because it does have a significant.
Thank you for that. And so I've seen the tree, and what I saw is that the tree is leaning towards the street. So the cabling would then be sort of pulling it the opposite direction for when or if it falls, it would be supported by the cables. Is that correct?
That's correct. The cable would be going towards the park. And I have concerns about that also.
Right. Okay, thank you. And then do we have an estimated time of when or if the tree will fall, or over the last 5 years, has it moved, you know, another 24 inches? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how is that being monitored? Because it's significantly leaning into the portion of where the street and the homes are. So have you been gauging how quickly it's going in that direction?
A council member that hasn't been there, I have not been gauging this. Like I say, this significant work has been done on this tree for over 20 years. This is the first work that we've done under my tenure in public works with this tree. I cannot gauge the lean of the tree and how much it has moved in the past, but I know that it has created significant buckling of the sidewalk over the years, and it's going to continue to do that. And we need to be cognizant that this is a city-owned park and sidewalk, and we are responsible for it. And we need to make sure that we provide ADA accessible pathways around our parks where those sidewalks exist. And that lean is creating the heaving of the root system, which ultimately keeps degrading the sidewalk. Mr. Weisfuss may be able to expand upon that, but I believe I covered and answered your question. We don't have any past information. There were no previous arborist reports or permits filed on this tree. That's why we began this process. We went exactly how the process was spelled out in the code, and that's why we're here this evening.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Go. And then just, so my last question is, if we were to maybe allow 30 days or 60 days to perhaps get some costs together, other solutions. Councilmember Coletti was speaking about a bump out and remove parking spaces, unless that's already been looked at. I mean, do you think in that 30 to 60 day timeline, would the tree fail?
No.
Councilmember McAdams, through the mayor, I've learned a lot with my tenure in public works and working with Mr. Weisfuss and previous arborists and other arborists that I've been associated with in my career. And one thing they will never specify is when a tree is going to fail. You cannot judge that. You can only evaluate the risk associated with the tree and gauge that risk at the present moment. A tree could last 5 years. We could get an unusual windstorm and that tree could last 10 days. Healthy trees I've seen fall. So I cannot specify how much longer the tree has. I can't do that. I can only go by the facts and the findings that are noted in the staff report and in the arborist report.
Great. Thank you very much for answering my questions, Mr. Go. I appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm reading all of the documentation we have again here. I'm looking at the photographs, and it's been some significant infrastructure damage that clearly will continue as the tree, if the tree were to be left in place. I think that, you know, my assessment is that if the arborist feels this is this tree has issues, it's a risk to remain in the ground. I think that based on the risk alone of falling on a person, on a child, on a car, on a structure, that right there to me, and the fact that the tree is not healthy according to our arborist, would militate in favor of removal. And so that's where I would be with it from a risk standpoint, from a cost benefit analysis. I think I've always voted in favor of environmental, you know, health and community.
Oh, you have not.
Can you please? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. and by the way, she's wrong. But anyhow, I have always supported environmental policies. I've served on a lot of different things that on committees and on the Planning Commission during environmental policy creation. And I feel that just doesn't meet a cost benefit analysis. And I would remove the tree for risk reasons, as I said. And I don't favor removing trees. In fact, I think this might be the first time I've done it or voted in favor of it. But at this point, I'm not convinced that the tree can survive and for any length of time. And so we should remove it. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson, you had your virtual hand up. It's now down. So, okay.
I'll go ahead now, Mayor. I was going to let you know that one of the members of the public was still had talking privileges, but we discovered that anyway. So I'll go ahead and make my tree comments now as well. Thank you for all the emails that came in over this topic, the beautification board, the time, the effort. I absolutely love the enthusiasm and the support that our community has for our trees. And I share that love very deeply. I also believe in safety, and I've never quite understood the allowing a tree to get to its phase of life where it's decayed and will fall, possibly cause risk and damage and problems, or even just fall and not cause any problems. I mean, I live near the cemetery, and many trees during storms, they fall and they're never replaced. And that is that is what is deforesting Pacific Grove, in my opinion. And so the alternative is, when a tree is identified as about to fail or not doing well, sick, decayed, weakening, all these things, responsibly remove them and replace the trees, and replace it with 2, 3, 4, however many trees. It's a city tree, so I would absolutely support replacing this tree with multiple trees. And I know as a city we could find places to put new healthy trees. I can't stomach letting trees fall and there's no ordinance or governance to have to replace them. And so I think the right move is for us, and Al and I have talked about this before, about having a good inventory of our trees and identifying those risk trees that need to come down, and replace them before they just fall and no one's on the hook to replace them, because that process will leave our children and the future of Pacific Grove with a lot less trees than it should have. So here we are with an identified tree that I will support tonight for removal. And I demand, if I can use such a strong word, that we plant new trees in its place. And so that's one reason, because I believe in that process in order to support our canopy's health. And then the other reason is, God forbid something happens and the tree causes an ADA person to get hurt, a child, any person, a dwelling, and we have all this record of recommendation to us to remove the tree. And, the legal risk of putting the city in a precarious position, and council in general, to not uphold these professional recommendations is not wise and not something that I want to do. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. If it's a person that wants to save all the trees, it's me. I just believe in that. However, I have to state a couple of things. It's already been stated by other council people, but I could talk about the trip hazard, the parking lot or the bulb out where you move into another space. We haven't forgotten about, we need to not forget about the businesses that are in line on that, all the way up from people walking down to Silmar, the beach area, to the businesses, the museum. This is important areas. We can't be taking up any more parking lots areas. Pebble, before I talk about that, Pebble Beach, if you recall, built these homes and they took down quite a few trees, but they've continuously, I saw it this morning when I was jogging by, they've planted so many more trees. They're they look like gallon or 2 gallon. I'm not talking about that type of tree put in a jewel park, But I went through Jewel Park myself and I counted 19 trees, excluding the elm. 19 beautiful trees, and including that beautiful Christmas tree. When we come back to eventually lighting it, that'll be great. The other thing is that I noticed the leaning of the tree, and I looked around and saw the decay of the cavity. I would, without talking and including the liability factor, that tree goes down. It appears it's leaning toward, if it goes down, it's going to hit some structures, and also people walking on the sidewalk and cars. That's a big thing. The liability factor is the key to this whole thing. I would approve the permit 21-99 to remove the tree.
Councilmember Podurian.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, this is a deep-rooted issue, but I wanted to first of all acknowledge everyone that has written, and certainly I would say planted some ideas in my head too. I'm no expert by any means, but I wanted to ask the arborist a couple of questions. One, it was mentioned in the report that there was a level 2 assessment done, and based on the level 2 report, you had provided some recommendations. For my enlightenment, would a level 3 report give us any further indication into what is going on? Can a level 3 report even be, or assessment even be done or not? What are your thoughts?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. That's a good question. So in the report does talk about it does talk about what a level 3 assessment is. I did not do a level 3 assessment. A level 3 assessment would be more of a resistance testing or tomography testing. So resistance testing, there's an instrument that can be used to drill into the tree that will create a graph of what's going on inside of the tree regarding decay or cavities or things like that. The tomography is kind of an ultrasound of the tree. The tomography has sensors placed around the tree that will process tapping on each sensors and give you a reading, sort of an ultrasound picture of what exactly is going on in the tree. I don't do either one of those assessments. Those tools are extremely expensive, and the cost of having that done can get expensive as well. So there is another level that it could be taken to.
Got it. And there were some comments around transplanting the tree. Do you have any thoughts around that? Is that out of your kind of jurisdiction, or is that something that you encounter typically?
I've done transplanting with tree spades. This is a tree in particular is probably not one that I would suggest to transplant based on what's happening in the bottom portion of that trunk and that root collar, and that the roots have been, two things, restricted to the west side and mostly developing towards the east, and then also intertwining with any other roots from the surrounding trees. So it would be a little bit of a challenge to try and get it out of there and have a successful rate. And if you did do that and you did have a successful rate, you're still going to have issues with decay and cavities and things like that. So you're just moving the problem from where it's at to another location.
Understood. Got it. I appreciate the feedback. So my view is going to be in line with the risk factor. I think the city, personally, I mean, if this tree was in my backyard, I mean, I would be viewing it from a risk angle too, which is it going to harm my family, my neighbors, etc. And I think the city can't afford a risk like this, especially when it comes to something which is in the middle of a public, it's almost like in the middle of the public street. So my thoughts right now lie with like the removal of the tree and considering the planting of as many trees as we can. Thank you. By the way, one more item I wanted to add was, sorry to prolong this. There was I would say a remarkable amount of feedback on what we can do when it comes to trees. I mean, is it prudent of us to actually consider all of that feedback for the future when we're considering any kind of tree activity? Just take that into consideration whenever. Seemed like there's a lot of things going on, and I'm again, perhaps you're already doing this from a city arborist standpoint, but perhaps we can consider all that feedback into the future too. Thank you.
Director Go, I'm not sure if that was a question.
May I respond, Mayor?
Please.
So this tree, Councilmember Paduri, through the mayor, I'd like to just respond briefly to that. This tree was planted years ago on a location that probably wasn't suitable, or the tree was there and the sidewalk was put in prior to any of us having knowledge of what was going to happen 30, 40 years down the line. When we go through now, when we plant these street trees, which we're considering this, we're putting them in extra large tree wells with gravel, the proper drainage and all that associated. Mr. Weisfist, our city arborist, is doing a very good job at making sure these trees are going to have room to grow in the future. So yes, we are taking all of those things into consideration and are already implementing them. Right now, we're fixing something that happened multiple decades ago.
Got it. Thank you for that too.
Of course. And may I state one more thing, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
It's the opportunity for replant's been brought up, and this Public Works will replant how many trees we need to if this is approved. But as stated in the report, Al and I would like to buy a very nice specimen tree, a 20, 30-gallon box tree that we can put in the right location in the park that will provide that shade, that habitat for many decades to come, that's in the right location. So I just wanted to specify that, and that is in the report already. Thank you.
A few comments of my own. I appreciate everyone writing in and speaking, and the folks that participated in the last BNRC meeting on this. It just demonstrates that there's a lot of folks in our community that feel passionately about trees and preserving them and adding more trees. And I think that's all to the good, and it's a great part of our community. And I'd like to add that this is an opportunity perhaps for folks to understand that there is this support for more trees. There are some ongoing efforts. A number of years ago, Al Sachs started tree planting in George Washington Park, and now Tom and Kim Aikman and others have picked up that mantle and have been planting trees in George Washington Park. So there's still efforts out there ongoing, I'd say more ad hoc. But maybe this is the time also for local government to take more notice. We had a 2016 urban greening plan, and the year before we had a tree canopy assessment and a number of urban forest reports. And since that time, that hasn't been a focus for council or city government. So maybe that's a time to rethink that. And also for the residents, of course, planting more trees on private property as well, and having some effort to incentivize or encourage folks for planting more trees. So you can probably tell where I'm going is the efforts in a much broader scale across the city probably reap bigger dividends than making an extraordinary effort saving one tree. Although this particular tree, it's a gorgeous tree, and I think I've heard 50 good reasons tonight why we should save trees, and I agree with absolutely every one of them. And it's a shame that we have to contemplate removal of this tree. My main concern, number one, is public safety. And we've heard that this tree is, I believe, 25 feet tall. And if it fell, and it's leaning to the west, and so if it fell, it would fall on Forest Avenue, across Forest Avenue. And so it puts pedestrians and parked cars, drivers, and possibly the house immediately opposite this tree. And that is an overriding concern of mine, and not the sidewalk. I'm not sure what the legal ADA requirements are for a sidewalk, and that I think we could probably work around that. If that were the only concern. I think parking, I agree. I think loss of a few parking spaces is a relatively small price to pay for it, but I haven't heard anything that really tells me that we have a real solution for eliminating or greatly minimizing the safety aspect. I heard about the cabling. I listened to that. I just didn't like the idea of it now falling in another direction. And there's so much uncertainty associated with this. How much we'll never know when this tree would fall on its own or the direction. I'll
get them. They're in the thing, and they're probably gonna take a break in a minute.
Okay, I'll continue. I'm almost finished. So yeah, add all this up, I'd rather see the efforts expanded by the city and the community on all the other things that we can do. I heard some great ideas about the new sidewalk trees and how we're handling that. I'd like to see us go in that direction. I think we'll get more value out of those efforts. So I will agree to have this tree removed for those reasons. And so everyone has spoken. If there's no other council discussion on this item, I'll ask for a motion. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, sir. I move that we hold a de novo public hearing for tree removal permit application 21 TAC 199 and approve tree permit 21 TAC 199, allowing the removal of one American elm at Jewel Park, overturning the August 17, 2021 decision of Beautification and Natural Resources Commission, BNRC, to uphold the tree appeal submitted by Patricia Kerwin and Charles Schwartz.
Second.
Before I ask for a vote, I want to note that one person implied that there were people or city staff that wanted to see this tree down. And we heard from staff, and they absolutely do not agree with that statement. We would like to see all the trees saved. And so I want to correct that for the record. All right, I think we're ready for a vote. Ms. Kendall.
Thank you, Mayor.
Council Tomlinson.
I'm sorry, I know I made the motion, but I got so into reading it that I forgot to add the part I wanted to add, which was to include, let's see, direct Public Works to replant 2 trees at the recommendation of the city arborist for the most appropriate replacement trees and location.
May I make a suggestion? Could you just shorten that to plant two new large trees in Jewel Park?
Yes, I would like to add plant 2 new trees in Jewel Park.
Thank you.
I second that particular motion.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. All right, we're going to do a vote, and then we're going to need some findings for this as well. So we can do that after the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Tomlinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Council members Coletti?
No.
McAdams?
Aye.
And Peduri?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. We'll need some findings. Mr. Laredo, would you like to help us with this?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, on page 186 of your agenda packet, under the summary and conclusion, the 3rd paragraph there does have the criteria in the municipal code that allows removal of protected trees. I believe that you could adopt some or all of that paragraph as your findings, and that would suffice.
And do we need a motion, or can we just have general agreement on what are the findings?
Prefer to have a motion.
All right. I'll move that the 3rd paragraph under summary and conclusions on the packet on page 186 be broken up into findings. From the start of that paragraph, it is recommended until where it says number 1, risk assessment level of high or extreme. And I don't think the others apply. So if we could just stop at that point, the word extreme, I think that covers, or add the word safety, it just says risk assessment level high or extreme. How about add threatening potential pedestrians and cars, passengers.
I've got a question, Your Honor.
Yes, Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you. Was there any requirement for a CDP permit, and is that going to influence these findings?
If I may respond through the mayor, whether or not a CDP is needed is independent. That's not a topic of this appeal. Certainly, staff will need to assess that. If a CDP is needed, then we would need to get that before the tree is in fact removed. I'm not certain that it is required, but I don't believe that that is a component of your decision making here on the appeal.
Thank you.
And
Councilmember Emilio.
Yes.
Councilmember Emilio.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a question for Mr. Laredo. I agree with the mayor what he said, but do both paragraphs have to be read in this on these summary and conclusion?
No, it does not. I believe the motion is to incorporate that portion of the 3rd paragraph under summary and conclusion as findings, and I believe that is sufficient.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ryder. I'll second that then, Mayor.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, may we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. I didn't catch you second for that, Mayor.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you. Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Aye.
Council members Emilio,
Aye.
Coletti,
No.
McAdams,
Aye.
Paduri,
Aye.
and Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. Motion to recess, short recess to 8:30.
So moved.
Did I see a show of hands in favor? Okay. I think show of hands again. We're missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Motion carries unanimously. 8:30. Thank you. Let's just wait another moment. We need a few more council members return. We're now on to unfinished and ongoing business, the former item 9B, which is amend archaeological monitoring agreements with Patricia Paramore for the ABS and SCSMP projects. Ms. Hallaby, welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. As Mayor Peak just stated, this item is bringing forth an amendment for the archaeological monitoring agreements with Patricia Paramore for both our ASBS project as well as our sewer collection system master plan projects. These amendments reflect an increase in the contract totals to essentially bring a true up amendment to reflect the total cost incurred for this mandatory project element. The specific amounts are noted in the agenda report. I do not have a presentation prepared as this was an item that was on the consent agenda, but I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Let's go out for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. Lisa Gianni, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Oops, it's hidden. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm hoping that the whopping disparities between the estimates and actual costs for archaeological monitoring will result in Public Works planning more realistic estimating in the future. But I'm surprised that tribal monitoring is not mentioned in the staff report, since the coastal development permits required both archaeological and tribal monitoring for both the ASBS and sewer projects. I hope you will ask staff to explain for the public why there are not similar disparities mentioned between estimates for tribal monitoring and actual costs, and how those disparities are being funded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Inga Lawrenson Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the council to ask yourselves, how many more true-up contracts will city staff bring to the taxpayer public after the fact? And how many more times will archaeological needs be minimized by planning and public works departments and not prioritized and accurately assessed? How many more times will planning department minimize the importance of the CCC requirements? And how many more times will City Hall refuse to include the public in timely disclosure and transparency of what they've already done? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Peak and members of the council and staff as well, and members of the public. I'm very concerned that there is a pattern in the city, especially in the public works department, to not make accurate assessments of what a project's scope is going to be, and not present to the city council and the public what that scope is and what the costs will be, and then to come back later, as in this case, and ask for a lot more money to cover their mistakes. Archaeology, tribal assessments of archaeological resources is essential, extremely important in the city of Pacific Grove. Yet in this instance, we're being asked to increase the agreements, the not to exceed agreements, to exceed those agreements at a very high level. That does not make sense. I don't see how you can, in your fiduciary responsibility, agree to this. I'm sorry to the consultants. I'm sorry to the tribal people if they're involved in this. I'm not sorry for the Public Works Department. How can you agree to this? Where are the facts and the findings that allow you to say, yeah, oh yeah, we can triple the costs. We can increase the cost by multiple levels because we didn't know what we were doing. When the consultant signed on to this, they signed on to the scope of the work that was in the project. It doesn't make sense to me. I've done these kinds of agreements. It does not make sense. You should not approve it.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council. And since Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the public comments. I didn't have a comment till hearing that because I'm really surprised to hear, because the folks speaking, I know how much tribal monitoring is important, and I know how important it is myself. I would like to know more about the bidding process and the contract with the consultants. And I'm making some guesses here, but I feel like this is one of those, they do the best bid they can, but until you get in and start digging things up and actually figuring out what's under there, it's hard to know the scope of the work. And so maybe there's provisions in the contract for this type of increase as discovered or as necessary, but can Public Works Department speak to why? I don't see a trend. I see that maybe this could continue to happen in this area. And if so, I'd like to know that so I can expect it, or we could talk about a different way to bid this activity. But yeah, Ms. Hallaby, can you, if through the mayor, expand on how they do their work?
Sure, Councilmember Tomlinson, through the mayor. I just want to start by saying, excuse me, that archaeological monitoring is a requirement for this project for any ground disturbance activities, as noted in the coastal development permit, as well as the mitigated monitoring plan associated with the EIR for the ASBS project. So the way in which the contract was executed was for a not to exceed amount, but that's based on an hourly rate. So the archaeological monitors have an hourly rate. We did our best at the onset of this project to estimate the potential archaeological monitoring needs. We obviously fell short of that, which is why we brought the first amendment forward and now this second true-up amendment. But again, this was $9 million worth of construction activity, and to what you alluded to, construction schedules and estimates are one thing when we start a project, but as things progress on the ground, realities are slightly different. And so the monitoring needs were higher. We obviously very much value archaeological monitoring, which is why it was performed on every single ground disturbance activity associated with both of these projects. It's just that our estimates on the initial need fell short.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, so I supported it when I read it on the consent agenda, and I still support it. And I think that as a council, I'm going to at least know in the future that this could very well happen, because the business of construction has changes in hours, and I'd rather the Public Works Department kind of underbid it, really, so that because consultants will oftentimes do the hours to meet the amount, right? So I'd rather it be this way, where we need to come back and get the additional hours and be good stewards of using their hours when and where needed. So it sounds like that's going on, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for pulling this off the consent agenda. And it never ceases to amaze me how big ticket items end up on a consent agenda. I mean, I'm editorializing a little here, but if it's over $5,000, it shouldn't be on the consent agenda, period. So, so at any rate, I'm glad it's not, or it was pulled off. So we've gone from $30,000 to 117, and then another one, 30,000 to $118,000. That's huge. That's not, oops, I missed it by a factor of 2 or something like that. So my first question, was there an RFQ involved in this at all?
There was no RFQ involved.
No RFQ. So there's no bids came in for this, or how was the bid process handled on this?
So we obtained hourly rates, essentially fee schedules for different archaeological firms. And that was how the process was determined.
How did we pick the one that we did?
I believe it was the lowest hourly rate.
I guess not. And that's the thing I'm kind of driving to, is that through this bidding process, we get lowballed. We're basically getting taken advantage of. we get lowballed and say, oh, good, we're going to save some money here. And then it comes in later and we spend 2, 3, 4, 5 times more than we expected to. And so that's very, I think that is the pattern that I recognize and that I find troubling. So the original $30,000, how was that authorized? Was it done through the city manager's spending authority?
That's correct.
Okay, so it never even came before council, except now we get it back when there's the cost overruns. So that kind of short circuits the oversight process too, in my mind. I think there's a pattern in that too. So I don't know what to say. I mean, has the work already been performed?
That's correct.
Okay. So we owe this person this money.
So all of the costs have already been incurred as well. The final invoicing has been processed.
So we've been invoiced.
That's correct.
Okay. And now you're asking us to approve payment for those invoices.
That's correct.
Okay. A little bit after the fact, I suppose. Well, who is responsible for supervising the consultants through the process to know? I mean, when do the red flags come out to know that you've gotten off track?
So I see both our city manager and our public works director on, so I think one of them would like to speak.
Well, yeah, whoever would like to, that's fine.
I can take this, Mr. Harvey. Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor, this is my responsibility. Public Works is my department. I've been communicating with Joyce Hallaby, Deputy Director of Public Works, through this whole process. We have over $9 million worth of construction that was occurring. We could not halt that construction because we needed to bring back a contract for archaeological monitoring. We would have incurred significant delay costs with the contractor. So it's ultimately my responsibility as a director of public works to keep this project moving forward. We have very stringent deadlines with the state of California that we needed to meet. And that's where we stand. That's where we stood. So I take full responsibility for this, but we did need to keep the project going. All underground work, as specified earlier by Ms. Hallaby, needed to have monitors on board. Very tough to estimate the monitoring needs on $9 million worth of construction and infrastructure upgrades.
Well, sure, but that's our job to do that. And yeah, $9 million is the project cost, but I don't necessarily see how that impacts getting a valid. I mean, how far are you off on the estimates of on the other components of the project?
The rest of the project's under budget, within budget.
Okay. So it's just this particular one that we didn't, okay. Well, I think we need to have a lessons learned here. What went wrong? And you know, when things get behind schedule and there is pressure, I understand that perfectly. I appreciate your point. That's when contractors can take advantage of the situation too. And they say, okay, great. You need my time? I'll give it to you in spades. So again, it's the managing of the consultant that maybe needs a little bit of true up here as well. And again, I do not like seeing this on a consent agenda, but it sounds like we don't have any choice but to pay this person. So I don't like being in that position. Thank you.
I would like to specify too that the management of the consultant was on point and that every time a shovel hit the ground, we had that monitor there. And that's the management through the project with monitoring that was on point. We did not have a choice. We had to have it there. And you specify that we were taken advantage of. This was the lowest hourly rate consultant that we hired. If we had a different consultant, some of them were double or triple. We'd be looking at numbers in the triple digits right now instead of $9,000 over the sewer project and $40,000 over on the ASBS project. I think we did an exceptional job for $9.5 million worth of work.
Well, I'm not arguing over and again, I don't think the $9 million project has any bearing on this. So I've said my piece, Mayor. I think I'll let I don't think it was managed well, period. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And, you know, this is a difficult position to be in. However, the contractor did the work and the city must pay on the invoice. And so as much as, you know, I agree with Councilmember Coletti, let this be a lesson learned. And, you know, but I also understand construction costs are very high right now. So our consultants and contractors, it's very difficult to get people to show up for, you know, to do this work, especially so specialized. So, however, you know, it is after the fact. And so for the future, it would be a better position for myself as a council member to be aware of what is happening at that time. But I am happy to make a motion if we're ready to move forward.
I think we have some more comments. Councilmember Emilio.
I'm just, before I say something, I know Mr. Harvey had his hand up. I'm willing to talk about it. All right, Mr. Harvey, but let me discuss this real quick. Yes, it is an expense. However, I'm just going to relate it to another project in another setting I was in, and putting in solar panels in a school district. And we had quite a few overruns, but we informed our school board immediately when those overruns were. And when you're dealing with a $6 million project, you're going to have construction overruns. And this is not a $1 million project. This is a $9 million project. And I support this. I just wanted to make my comments known.
Mr. Harvey, did you want to discuss this with council?
I did, Mayor. Thank you. I just want to remind council that your Public Works Department has an exemplary track record when it comes to project management. Dan Go treats the city's money as if it is his own money. He is very much on top of budgets. If you look at his—
Mr. Harvey, that's not the topic.
Mr. Mayor, may I finish my comment?
If you would please stay on the topic.
Mr. Mayor, I am on topic because there was a suggestion made that perhaps this is a pattern, perhaps, we went afoul here, that this is something that we need to really deep dive into. And I want to tell the council that this department, Public Works Department, does an exemplary job in this area. And I think it's important for council to hear that. I also think it's important for council to hear that I was kept in the loop on this and it wasn't a lone wolf type situation. Every now and then, a situation like this occurs and we do our best to minimize them. And when we do have something like this happen, we come to you and we tell you about it. Thank you for listening to me.
Well, I appreciate you, the staff, coming to council. My understanding from reading the agenda report was that payments have been made in excess of authorized amounts. This isn't a question of we've got the invoices and now we're looking for approval to pay them. My understanding from the agenda report is they've already been paid. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So, and I understand that, as construction estimates are just that, estimates. That really wasn't my point in pulling this. Shouldn't we have financial controls in place to prevent payments in excess of authorized amounts?
I can respond to that question.
Please.
We do, and the situation was we made a management decision, and the decision was, it was, in this instance, going to cost the city less money to proceed in this manner. And that's why we made that decision. We were looking at the bigger picture and the city's dollars here and what it would cost if there were significant project delays. And Mr.
Okay,
Gross
could
can
you
advise me if I'm stated that incorrectly.
Yeah, could you walk me through your financial controls process or system?
Sure. So the Public Works Department manages the budget and the contracts, and they keep a tally on work completed and invoices received and remaining work to be done. And they were apprised that they were going to be in a situation where there was an additional amount of effort that was going to be required that exceeded the scope. And in order to do that, we had a choice to make. We could either halt the project and go back and get council approval and incur some delay costs, or we could seek ratification. We felt that the council would likely understand the situation and that there was going to be some potential significant additional costs incurred. And rather than expend those, we proceeded in this manner. And I'd ask the Public Works Director if I've characterized that wrong, because that's my recollection of our discussion on this matter. Mr. Go?
Yes, Council Member, or yes, City Manager Harvey, that is correct. And we talked and discussed about bringing it back to City Council a month ago, 2 months ago, knowing that more costs were still going to be accrued and not knowing those total costs because the project was coming to an end and we still had to receive the final report from the archaeological consultant and so on. I made a decision with discussing with my deputy director and the city manager to finalize up the project, get our final report, our final invoicing, and bring one final amendment to City Council for ratification. This is the final amendment for archaeological monitoring for this project. Lessons learned, yes. We tried to estimate to the best of our ability. I think in the future, the lesson that I've learned is we're probably going to overestimate. And then as a council member stated earlier, then that gives the consultant an opportunity to maybe say, hey, I've used more hours to do this final billing or might do my final report. It's a catch-22.
Well, I just point out that if council authorizes a certain amount for an expenditure, what you told me, if there's a cost overrun and staff decides that in the best interest of the city, that they're going to exceed this authorized amount and then bring that, ask for authorization after the money's been paid. I mean, at this point, the money's already been paid. You really don't need our authorization to pay the contractor because it's already been done. So does this happen in other instances? Does this only happen for public works projects, or does this happen also in other departments?
This is an unusual situation, Mr. Mayor. We don't normally, the reason why you don't see this type of thing happen very often is because it doesn't happen very often.
Well, I think that in this instance, clearly it was already amended once, so it was seen that costs were going to be escalating considerably. In this case, I think it would be better to go ahead and get authorization that might appear to be more than what you would think, and not pay, not authorize, or tell the contractor to keep working when it exceeds the authorized amount. That's my opinion. Yeah, Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, our city code chapter 216, purchasing systems and procedures speaks solely to how to navigate this process. And so, you know, we have been in this situation before, and if I'm not mistaken, my recollection was the city attorney, in fact, did say that we as a council have to authorize whether the payment has already been made or not. So we do need to vote on this, and that would be a moot vote because the check has already been cut. So again, just circling back to my initial comment is this is not a comfortable position to be in, and not one that I want I don't want this to be something, you know, I did hear how this is unique and doesn't really happen, but the way that our municipal code is written, it should never happen. And I would encourage staff to review 2.16 of our code. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tempore Smith.
Your Honor, just move approval.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yes, Councilmember Coletti.
Well, thank you, Your Honor, and thank you again for pulling this. It's been, there's a purported claim, purported that this is unique. It's not true. This is the exact same thing that happened with the library lease at the Holman's building. The payment was authorized and paid, it was paid prior to authorization by the council. This is a pattern. Now, maybe some folks don't want to recognize it, but I do. And the pattern here is that contracts are getting authorized under the city manager's spending authority, and then there's cost overruns. I didn't even realize the invoices were paid. Thank you for clarifying that, Mayor. I'm not going to approve this. I know there'll be the votes to approve it, but I'm not going to approve this. This is sloppy. You don't pay an invoice without having authorization. And if you want to talk about a normal construction project, when there's an overrun, the contractor comes to the person bankrolling the project and said, "Hey, we've got an overrun coming up." And the contractor doesn't automatically just get paid in advance of the authorization, or the subcontractor. So I am very disappointed with this. I think it is a pattern, and I think Councilmember McAdams was comments regarding Title II and how these serial changes to a contract that were first issued under the spending authority end up getting out of hand because there wasn't initial oversight in the beginning. So again, I'm disappointed with this. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's been a lot of comments said tonight. I just would like to add that I really appreciate the project, this $9 million project being managed by Public Works. I think you're doing a phenomenal job, and I'm okay with the way this has happened because I trust that you made the right decisions for the city. And I believe that we would be authorizing additional monies out of our pocket that we don't have to because of your decisions. So I do support this, as I did from when I first read it. So thank you, Public Works.
May we have a vote, please?
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Councilmembers Emilio?
Aye.
Coletti?
No.
Maduri?
Aye.
And Tomlinson?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. We're now on to item 13A, City Council Salary and Health Benefits. Councilmember McAdams.
Mr. Mayor, if I may jump in here, I'm sorry. I did speak with Councilmember McAdams. We are going to request, and I'm sorry this is so late in your meeting, that would this item be tabled to a future meeting?
Councilmember McAdams, would you like to continue this item?
Yes, Mayor. Yeah, yes, I would. And the reason for that is because earlier in the week, Councilmember Coletti did bring up that the draft survey was missing some information. And so I want to make sure that we have complete information before we have the discussion and review the item.
Right. Mr. Laredo, do we need a motion to amend the agenda? I think so. I think we need a motion to continue.
You can just move to continue. You don't have to amend the agenda.
Great.
Okay.
So I'd like to move to continue this item to a meeting as soon as the survey is finalized.
I'll second that.
May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Council members Tomlinson,
Aye.
Paduri,
Aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
Coletti,
Absolutely.
Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to continue this item.
To date after the survey is obtained.
Correct.
All right, we're on to item 13B, ADA Assistance Program. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very short presentation on this, just an oral presentation. As this council is well aware, the city made a transition from Parsec to the CJPIA approximately 2 years ago. Part of the attraction in making that transition was their assistance and expertise in helping municipalities with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we've already started to take advantage of that. We've conducted with the authority and their consultant at their expense an informal review of the city's infrastructure and facilities to try to gauge exactly what is out there as far as necessary ADA improvements. Those of you that have been paying attention to city actions in the past will know that the city has embarked upon prior ADA transition plan efforts. Unfortunately, those efforts are stale at this point, and they were never matched with dollars to implement them. With the insurance authority acting as our compass on this effort, we would now like to move forward with some vigor. And the way we'd like to do that is we would like the city council to authorize that we enter into an MOU with the insurance authority so that we may do a detailed assessment of our facilities and our infrastructure in order to develop a transition plan. That's the first step in the ADA compliance process. This is going to be a multi-year process. It's very important, as everyone here knows. The second phase, which is not what we're here to talk about this evening, is going to be the implementation of the infrastructure improvement plans through the city's capital improvement program, wherein we could also take advantage of another insurance authority program which allows for financing of those improvements. But tonight, we're simply asking you to authorize some funding. It's going to require an additional $26,000 if you carry over $50,000 you already approved in a prior year budget, along with some insurance authority contributions for a grand total of around $90,000 expenditure for a detailed transition and scope for this effort. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
Any public comment?
I see no hands raised, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I apologize. I see one hand raised now. Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council, city manager. I'm concerned that in the past, recent past, the city has made public works projects or conducted public works projects that have threatened the safety of people who are within the category of ADU. I can think of one example is the city approved the wonderful idea of providing access to the coastal area of the Great Tide Pool. And in that project, they constructed a facility for ADA requirements to sit below the datum elevation of 20, which is 5 feet below the hazardous level. That area, that ramp, those that boardwalk, those benches have been trashed by waves during high wave, high storm events. That's not good planning. I think that it's important to do what you're going to do, but you need to do it with people who understand how this is going to be done. So I'm recommending that you engage people who are competent in assessing these kinds of conditions in our area, which has a lot of hazards, especially along the coastal trail. So go forward, but do it with a full understanding of what the risks are involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Council discussion. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Tomlinson, for representing us on the Joint Powers Authority. And thank you to the city manager for doing all that initial legwork and having us be a member. I'm really understanding the value of that now. And I'm excited to see this. I mean, our ADA compliance and our ADA progress has just really been one of those projects that have been on the back burner for so long. So I'm really excited to see this work. And you know, I mean, obviously this is in line with our complete streets, and it's definitely much needed and well-deserved. So I thank you for having this item on tonight's agenda.
So without further council comments, may we have a motion?
Make a motion, Mayor.
Please.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the California Joint Powers Insurance Agreement and the City of Pacific Grove for purposes of authorizing work related to the Insurance American and Disabilities Act Assistance Program.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Councilmembers Tomlinson?
Aye.
Kaduri?
Aye.
McAdams?
Aye.
Coletti?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith? Mayor Pro Tem Smith, you were muted.
All right, I remuted myself. Aye, sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
All right, that brings us to item 15, which is closed session. And before we leave open session, I just want to note we will be adjourning tonight's meeting in honor of Jerry Lo Sabato, who raised the community's consciousness of our Chinese heritage and in specific, the existence of the Chinese village on the shores of what's now Hopkins Marine Station. I'll ask our city clerk, what are the mechanics as we go into closed session?
We can announce, such as past practice, we can announce the 2 items. We can take public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I got ahead of myself. Thank you for that. Yeah, we do have 2 items: conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Mark and Yadi in Yatia, petitioner and plaintiff versus City of Pacific Grove. And we are already in Monterey County Superior Court. And the second one is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Blue Wave Enterprises and John Kramer versus Pacific Grove, also a Monterey Superior Court item. Do we have any public comment on either of these items?
I see no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Now I guess it's time for the mechanics of how we move into closed session.
So, oh, my apologies. I would suggest that we adjourn this meeting and go back to the closed session meeting Zoom account, Zoom meeting.
Okay, well, we're not officially adjourning this meeting. We're just going into closed session.
Correct.
It will feel like we're adjourning because we're going out of this Zoom room into another Zoom.
Correct.
Okay. And let's see, our city attorney and city manager, we're all good to go into the prior closed session Zoom link to continue this meeting. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
One final point, Mayor.
Yes.
Just an apology to the people who stayed behind to listen to Council Member McAdams' item. There are several waiting, but that'll be heard later, as she mentioned.
Yeah. All right, for the people that are dropping off, for city clerk, thank you.
Are we switching?
Yes, you're switching to the other Zoom meeting.